What's going on? Slip is here with match one of our brain control league. So we are on the play. I see this hand, which seems pretty reasonable to me. So we can Serum Visions, then hold up Spell Snare and Logic Knot. If we don't use, Spell Snare, we can Brain in a Jar, hold up Spell Snare, blah blah blah. So I think this seems good. We're gonna get a Hallowed Fountain. And we see Beck Call Fatal Push. So we have a Fatal Push in hand. I think that with Spell Snare, I possibly don't need two of these. We could take it, but we'll kind of choke ourselves on black mana. I don't see over the next couple turns us casting Fatal Push twice. Could be good. I think where it's going to be good, Beck Call is going to be good too. And our opponent suspends Search for Tomorrow, so pretty glad we didn't take that Fatal Push. Overall, kind of meh card. And then here we could Brain in a Jar, we could hold up Spell Snare. I decide it's going to be pretty likely that our opponent's going to play a Tri-Builder, an Explore, or a Farseek here. Indeed, he plays Explore, so I'm just going to counter this. Keep him off a land drop, and he actually misses. No, he didn't miss a land drop there. I'm crazy. Esper Charm's a good draw. Eventually, if this is the Through the Breach version, remember if an opponent through the breach is with 3 cards in hand, right, counting the Through the Breach, so 2 left after it's on the stack, then Esper Charm is the nuts. Opponent up to 4 lands, can't really do anything here. We weren't worried about tapping out. And we're going to take up Jar. So our opponent's not likely to be able to do anything about this. The question is, do we Beck Call on our turn or their turn? And that kind of depends to me on whether or not we draw a land. We draw a Ghost Quarter, so I'm pretty comfortable just passing here so we don't miss our land drop. So we're hoping our opponent does something we can Logic Knot. Plays Obstinate Baloth. So this is an interesting call here. We're about to Beck Call, we'll probably get a fetch. We also have Ghost Quarter, so push is live against Baloth. We, in my mind, certainly don't want to waste a Logic Knot on this. I would much rather just let our opponent gain 4 and Beck Call. In response, we get to draw an extra card from this Baloth. It's going to be great. So we could Esper Charm our opponent here. However, we know he's main decking 1 Obstinate Baloth, and I'm kind of expecting that 2 is a possibility. If our opponent has a Summoner's Pact in hand, he can Pact for Baloth and discard that. It's like kind of a blowout. I think I'm going to wait until our opponent's a little lower on cards to Esper Charm, and we'll see how that goes. So we draw not a lot of action, although we have 1 mana Esper Charm next turn, or we could, well, we can't 3 mana Esper Charm and take down Jar, so we'll probably go the 1 mana route. Here we're certainly swinging with these birds. I leave behind 1 of these. I kind of want to see if, so like we're at 14 right now. If our opponent has a Bolt in hand and we leave back 1 bird, our opponent might bolt this. I don't know. It's kind of a dicey play maybe, like the real hard read. You probably don't want to do things like that, but it does work. So that's interesting. And because of that, we don't even have to fetch here. We can just push. Good. So we could Brain in a Jar, Esper Charm out. Now our opponent plays Land Summoner's Pact, so this is great for us. So again, now our opponent probably, might have another Summoner's Pact, but at the same time, they're not going to be able to pay for that, so they can't resolve 2. So we can Esper Charm here off of Ghost Quarter. We'll leave ourselves as much colored mana as possible. Opponent discards 2 cards. Basically had nothing. And now we have Logic Knot for this, except we don't want to counter Summoner's Pact. First of all, it would take our whole graveyard and make later Logic Knots worse. But we also want to counter the Primeval Titan our opponent plays so that he has to tap out next turn. And then we get a window where we can be ticking down Beck Call, and then we can draw into more counters. So our opponent pacts, doesn't get Titan. And we counter the Titan for 1. Get a Serum Visions, no reason not to play it. I don't think we want this path, but another Beck Call is okay. It's okay. We have a window here we're about to draw for, so like before our opponent does anything meaningful. Our opponent could theoretically play an Anger of the Gods soon. So we swing for 3. Opponent has to pay for Pact. Draws an unknown card. And it's an Explore. So, still an unknown card. And we probably want to tick this jar up since we're about to have 2 bet calls in hand. If we tick this up, it's 1 mana away from being at bet call range again on 4. Right? Take it up to 5 next turn. Or we could scry down. I decide here, because we're going to have 4 mana available, even though we know that the top card of our library is a bet call, I kind of like, since we have a bet call here too, I kind of like scrying all the way to 4 just to make sure our opponent doesn't draw one single like relevant card, because resolving a Primeval Titan here would probably lose us the game. So scry all the way down, we see a Cryptic Command, which we can in fact cast, right? So this is our upkeep, we get to play a land. So we're going to bottom the Path in the Jar and then top the Beck and the Cryptic in that order. So we draw Cryptic now, and if we have to shuffle away this Beck to cast Cryptic, we're going to be fine. So we play the fetch, attack our opponent to 12. Opponent's on a 2-turn clock from here, right? 2 more attacks if we get to Beck this turn. Opponent plays a Search for Tomorrow, so all the dead draws in the world. This deck has a lot of air. Its air is enablers, but at the same time, we fuse bet call, and our opponent scoops. See for game 2. Alright, on to match 2 here. We're on the draw this time. And for sideboarding, I still don't really like playing Blessed Alliance here. This isn't, first of all, we're not the kind of deck that normal Scapeshift would go off on like 7 lands or something, so Blessed Alliance is a little weak to me. And Path to Exile, I want some number of paths in, especially because we're going to have Ruined Halos post-board. Pathing a Titan isn't so bad. I don't like push that much, even though it's good for Baloth or things of that nature. So what we want is -1 path, 3 push, 1 Blessed Alliance, 1 Verdict. That's 6. We brought in 2 Ruined Halo for Valakut, or Valakut and Titan is a pretty solid lock. And 1 Negate and 3 Surgicals, because Surgicaling, say Valakut, Titan, these things, get us pretty close to winning the game. On the draw, this hand is a little sketchy, but at the same time, I kind of decide to keep it. And, you know, we have Serum Visions. Part of the point of this league is to test out Serum Visions, so I want to run it. And Jar hands are pretty strong as long as we do anything else. So here we have a weird decision. We can just play Colonnade and miss possibly our only opportunity to Spell Snare when it matters. We can shock ourselves to just hold up Spell Snare. We can Serum Visions, shocking ourselves again. I don't really like Serum Visions in here turn 1, but I decide that since our hand isn't doing a ton and we have Ruined Halo, I want to stall our opponent as much as possible. So I'm going to force him. He didn't have a Search for Tomorrow. I'm going to force him to play into this Spell Snare kind of to maintain the type of tempo he wants. We're going to Spell Snare this. And now we can Jar or we can Colonnade, basically. And I decide, since playing Jar, like we don't have a counter in hand right now, playing Jar on 2 and Jar on 3 lets us fuse at the same time. We also have a Stroms. I'd rather Serum Visions here and get some action. Play Colonnade, that gets us closer to playing Ruined Halo. Now we see a Cryptic. This is good, so if we Ruined Halo, Valakut next turn, we're kind of covered from Scapeshift if they don't have Summoner's Pact for Rex Sage or something like that. And then the following turn we'll have Cryptic for Primeval Titan. So I think I want to bottom this land and top the Cryptic, because we just really, you know, if we can make it to 4 lands here and hit that Cryptic, get rid of 1 threat, I think we're in decent shape. So at this point, opponent's on 5 lands, so Spell Snaring that Secure Tribuilder was good, and we wouldn't have been able to use it last turn. Name Valakut with this Ruined Halo. Our opponent plays Ground Seal, which is interesting, right? So he gets to cycle it, and then we can't target cards. I guess he thinks we're a Snapcaster deck, but it's also obviously really good against Surgical, right? So here, another thing, I'm not terribly worried about my life total. I just want the correct mana in this matchup. This deck really is almost always going to win by resolving some big spell. So this life total business, it's not super important to me. I don't think we want to Brain in a Jar here because if our opponent, for example, plays like Nature's Claim on the end of our turn and then Scape Shifts, we're not going to be able to Logic Knot stuff. And our opponent plays a Titan. Now, we obviously don't want to let this resolve. We could Logic Knot it or Cryptic it, and that's kind of a tough call because we have a free Logic Knot here where we don't have a lot of stuff in our graveyard. However, we could also Cryptic to try to draw into more crap. And I decide that I think Crypticing to draw into more crap is a little important. And we have a Surgical here, so it's really unfortunate that we can't Surgical this Titan right now and get information about our opponent's hand. Even so, if we draw an Esper Charm, we're okay with this. Otherwise, just kind of a dead card at the moment. I play Brain in a Jar here, so our opponent is not probably going to be able to Titan next turn. And I want to tap low to kind of encourage our opponent to Summoner's Pact for Titan, because that buys us more turns, right, when they have to tap out for Summoner's Pact. This line is not very good against Nature's Claim Scape Shift. So maybe I shouldn't have played that Jar. I kind of at this point feel that I want a little more action. Maybe that's wrong. I'm going to play Search for Tomorrow, getting up a bunch of lands. So our Logic Knot looking deader and deader. I take this up. We're going to shock here because our plan is to Esper Charm Ground Seal and Surgical to Primetime. Although we could actually Sram's Expertise, Esper Charm Ground Seal off of Sram's and then Surgical. That's a thing we could do. Maybe that would be better. But as it stands, I'm just going to Esper Charm this. Surgical Primetime and our opponent scoops. So pretty smooth run there against TitanShift. See you for match 2.